Alright, Pangea. So the formation of Pangea really began kind of in this end of the Paleozoic era and would come to dominate the Mesozoic era. That's what we'll get into in some later units. So, again, starting back from the beginning of the Paleozoic era, Laurentia here, Gondwana, those are the two bigger areas, but with the four of the other bigger pieces and a bunch of other small pieces. And let me just kind of fast forward as things are coming together. We're kind of in the middle part of the Paleozoic era, and as we're getting toward the end of the Paleozoic era in the Pennsylvanian and the Permian, we finally get Pangea forming, everything coming together, forming Pangea. What's sometimes fun to think about is, so this is Laurasia, so Arizona would be somewhere right around here, and so if we were to look at this, if we were to imprint modern day countries onto Pangea, this is kind of what it would kind of look like. So here's the United States, obviously Arizona would be over in this area, and how South America, Africa, these nations that are, or these continents that are nowhere near us now, are now near us in Pangea. A couple of things to point out. Another interesting formation as a result of the formation of Pangea is, I want you to notice that right here there's not much going on, and now there is. Not much going on, and now there is. So typically, when we're talking about mobile belts, orogenic events, mountain ranges, these typically occur at the margins, at the edges of continents, like what we see here, what we see here. And as Laurasia is coming together with Gondwana to really complete the Appalachian mobile belt, we can see that again at the edges of these continents, these cratons, are where these kind of mobile belts form. But yet we get this kind of big pop-up of mountains kind of away from the margins, kind of in the middle of the craton, these intracratonic mountain ranges. And these are actually some important ones, and maybe you heard of them. So these type of mountain ranges are somewhat unusual. It's thought that the collision of Gondwana and Laurasia that we just looked at, along the kind of the Ouachita mobile belt down in the southern part of the Appalachian mobile belt, generated great stress in the southwest region of North America, or at least what would become the southwest, where we live now. These crustal stresses, there was so much stress, so much pressure on this part of the southwest that faulting resulted, and pieces of material were thrust up, pieces of material, of crustal material kind of fell down, forming a series of ranges and basins, mountain ranges and down-dropped basins, and this is what actually formed the beginnings, not the kind of complete thing that we see now, but what's known as the Ancestral Rockies, getting the Rocky Mountains started. During the Pennsylvanian period, the area of greatest deformation occurred, again, in the southwestern part of North America, again with these fault-bounded uplifted blocks, the Ancestral Rockies. Some of these mountains were uplifted more than 2 kilometers, which is like about 1.25 miles. Can you imagine that? And again, it's not just all of a sudden. This is over millions of years, but as things are colliding, things are moving. So, this area gets thrust up 1.25 miles up into the air. That's basically like taking Phoenix and raising it as high as Flagstaff. Actually, it'd be higher than that. So not only do we get this uplift, but we also get weathering and erosion that's occurring, creating a lot of unique sediments as well. So the Ancestral Rockies are kind of in here. Now, again, the actual Rocky Mountains as we see them now, this is not what created those. This is the beginnings of the Rocky Mountains and some of the things we see in and around the Rocky Mountains. As those ancestral Rocky Mountains were uplifted, because of all of that stress, weathering and erosion took place. And so you get a lot of red sediment that's deposited kind of on the flanks of these ancestral Rockies, to where when, so you get this red sediment. The sediment was deposited, later lithified, turned to stone. And then when the actual Rockies began to form, what we know them as now, an additional uplifting and tilting occurred. These red layers kind of all got tilted up and created some really fantastic formations like what we see here. So again, these red basin sediments from the ancestral Rockies, we get this material weathering and eroding off of it, this red sand and gravel that was deposited in the surrounding basins. Again, we see these in especially in Colorado, many fantastic formations, like in the Garden of the Gods near Colorado Springs, which is actually where I used to grow up. The Garden of the Gods was kind of like my backyard. And Red Rocks Amphitheater. It's a music venue just outside of Denver. So this is the Garden of the Gods. It's a free park. It's fantastic. It's not all that big. It's kind of a little local thing, but you can actually see the actual Rocky Mountains behind it, what we now know as the Rocky Mountains. So all of these, you can see these thin layers. These are like just big long fins, and so that sediment was deposited, and then when the let's go this way. See, it's kind of similar to, I'm trying to match the picture up here. So we had the Ancestral Rockies, and they were weathering and eroded, depositing this red sediments. And then, so we get these red sedimentary rock layers. And then when the new Rocky Mountains started to form and uplifting things, it tilted these rock layers, these red sedimentary rock layers now, up vertical in some places, and leaving behind things like what we see here, the Garden of the Gods. And then Red Rocks Amphitheater, just outside of Denver, very famous, let me move me a little bit, very famous music venue. So there's a stage, and this is kind of like, it's outdoor, kind of like, what was that, not cricket, whatever the outdoor music venue is here, but just a million times more amazing. I've been lucky enough to, was visiting my sister who still lived in Colorado a number of years ago, and I got to see a concert at Red Rocks Amphitheater. It was Jack White, who used to be in the White Stripes, if you know that band. But anyway, but again, you see these red rock layers that were, again, tilted up. So this is a very famous music venue. A lot of music acts from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s recorded live albums here and videos here. If you ever get the chance, check out a band here. It's just different. It's just a different vibe. So in any case, but Pangea and these all kind of work together. All right, so let's go ahead and pause here. When we come back, let's talk about some mineral deposits in the Paleozoic, and this will be our last section. Hallelujah.